Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Miss Texas Show. In this show, we highlight the amazing lives of our survivors of sex trafficking, sexual assault, domestic violence, as well as other traumatic events. We also invite our community leaders to come on the show and share their resources. Under the segment Military Time, we partner with the National Veterans Chamber of Commerce, and we invite military and veterans to get on the show to share their experiences during and after their services. Another segment is called Beauty, Beautiful Ashes. This is the segment where we invite our pageant sisters, our artists, such as musicians, dancers, actors, last but not least, our ambassadors, who are survivors and who are now acting as an advocate in this community, and we would like to learn the impact that they are making in our communities. If you would like to be a guest on the show, you can contact us via Gmail. It is msusatexas at gmail.com. And you can also contact us via the same name via direct message on Facebook, MSUSA Texas. Now, without further ado, we have a celebrity in the house, Miss Lavinia Masters. Welcome.
Thank you. You're so kind. I'm not a celebrity, but thank you so much.
Well, for those of you who does not know, I have 3 pages of Lavinia's bio, and I'm gonna read a little bit. But so much achievement that she has done. But I want to let you know there's the House Bill number 8, which was enacted September 1st, 2019, the Lavinia Masters Act, which is the rape kit. And we're gonna ask Lavinia to dive into that to explain to our audience later more about what this act is about and how you can take advantage of it. I think it will be very essential for everyone that's listening here, whether you're a survivor, that you can use that and to protect you, and whether you are an advocate that can help a survivor with that, or you just someone common knowledge, because we just in this world, we don't know what's going to happen. It's always good to empower ourselves with the message, the knowledges. Now, we're gonna read a little bit paragraph about Lavinia. So she's a victim act, and Lavinia B. Masters is a native of Waco, Texas. She's a loving wife, mother, and grandmother. Wow, you look very young for
Yeah.
grandmother.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
she's a writer and an author. I know that she has a lot of books, and we're gonna ask her about those later. And she's a life coach and moderator and inspirational and public speaker and entrepreneur. And Lavinia struggled for many years emotionally, mentally, psychologically after childhood sexual abuse and a brutal rape at the age of 13 years old, before discovering and implementing 7 steps to her true empowerment after sexual trauma through prayer and supplications. No matter the audience or venue, her public voice as a survivor of rape always acknowledge her faith. For example, the trust she has in God, who transformed her from a girl of misery into a woman of ministry. Wow, this is powerful. Amen.
Thank you.
And this transformation rescued her from the debilitation, emotional, mental, and behavioral issues that defined her existence for decades following the childhood sexual abuse and the rape at the age of 13 years old. Today, she no longer just exists. Her life as a survivor turned advocate has brought her to the floor of the U.S. Congress, the U.S. Department of Justice, and White House Task Force on Rape. Like I said, she got 3 pages of bio and so much list of achievements. And we're just gonna bring Lavinia on to start, telling us a little bit of how this all got started. I know you said, you started the sexual assault and you were raped at the age of 13.
Yes. Thank you so much again, Eileen, for being here. It's a pleasure to share with your platform and your audience. And it is definitely a pleasure to be able to stand before you as a survivor. As you mentioned, I was brutally raped at 13 years old. I lived in those that are familiar with the Dallas area. I lived in the West Dallas area, and those were projects. And we had just moved here back from Houston. Again, my mother would go back and forth from Houston. And so we had just moved back from Houston. We were staying with other family members. And I was the oldest of the children. I had my two siblings. They were younger than I. And then we had my cousins. It was actually my cousin's project we were in until we were able to relocate to our own place. So I slept on the couch as the biggest person, and they slept on the floor in the pallets. And this night, July 31st, someone entered the downstairs window while we were sleeping. The adults were upstairs sleeping. And as I was laying on the couch, I remember the TV. Those who are old enough remember back in the day when the TV went off, it went to a fuzz. It was just, we called it the fuzz. And so the fuzz was on. I think it was David Letterman's show had just went off, and then the fuzz came on. And as I'm laying there, I'm awakened by someone with pressure on my neck and trying to open my legs. And when I opened my eyes, it's dark here, I realized that it was somebody that I didn't know. It was a stranger. And the pressure that was on my neck was a knife that he had to my neck. So as I began to struggle, I wanted to scream. And as I guess, try to get my bellow out of my scream, he told me to shut up and be quiet. Um, I'm trying to figure out, who are you? Where did you come from? Why are you here? In the midst of that, he was pressing the knife hard, deeper into my throat, telling me, shut up and be quiet. So at this moment, I guess I was so inundated with him and the knife and somebody I didn't know that I wasn't even paying attention, that he was steady trying to rip my underwear off of me. And I guess it was such a natural instinct for me to try to keep my legs closed while I'm talking to him, because I'm like, I don't know you. And so eventually he was able to follow through with his evil tactics, and he proceeded to rape me. I don't know how long it took. I don't know how long he was, but it seemed like forever. And I was not your natural 13-year-old child. I was somewhat of a rebel. So I got into a dialogue with him. And I was basically like, you know what? If you don't stop, my stepdad is going to come down the stairs with a big gun. My stepdad didn't even own a gun, let alone, I don't know if he knew how to shoot a gun. And I said he was going to kill you. And he goes, well, if he does, he said, I got this 45 waiting for him. I didn't know what a 45 was then, but I know now. And so I just began to cry and cry more. And he told me to shut up and keep my eyes closed. But as my eyes were closed, I had him like peeking through so I can get a visual of this person. I remember that smell. He smelled awful. I mean, it was a stench that you'll never forget. And he just continued to rape me. And I told him, I was like, my family is here, my siblings. And he was like, if I don't shut up talking and wrestling with him, that he was going to kill everybody. My heart just sank at that moment, because I thought, okay, this is not supposed to be happening. And I'm just 13 years old. I haven't lived my life. I haven't really fulfilled a lot of things. I had dreams of becoming an attorney, going to law magnet, and it was just so much going through my head. I'm like, why is this happening to me now, Lord? I was one of those children that was raised with my grandmother and my mother, and they had us believing in our faith in God. We had a strong foundation. We would get up every morning and pray and had scriptures. So I'm like questioning God in this moment. My grandmother had since passed, and I remember thinking of her, and I'm remembering what she told me as a little girl. She said, if you ever got in any kind of trouble, to call on the name of Jesus. So I took that literally. And as this guy is assaulting me, I called out the name of Jesus out loud. I struck a nerve. I realized I struck a nerve. And I didn't know if that was good or bad at first. And so he told me to shut up. And so I said it again. And he really got agitated with me. And so I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen next. But in my mind, I said, okay, Mama, which is what we called our grandmother. I said, if this is it, be there waiting for me because I thought I was going to die. And so I said it again. I said the name Jesus again. And at this time, he was like, he just roughed me up and he told me, I told you to shut up. But he stopped. He stopped and he told me to turn face down in the couch. But I didn't know what was really going to happen now. I said, I don't know if he's going to take my life, if he's going to stab me, if he's going to kill somebody else or what. I didn't know what was happening, but I laid face down in the couch. And as I laid there, I don't know what he was doing. I heard some stuff because he came to the front and the kitchen was towards the back. And I heard him shuffling around in the kitchen. And so I just laid there because I didn't know what. I'm not going to scream. I didn't want anybody else's life in danger. And as I laid there, all of a sudden, I heard the back door close from the kitchen. And I laid there a little bit longer because I didn't know if it was a trick or if he was trying, I didn't know what was happening or if he let somebody in the house with him or what have you. So all of a sudden, that same calm that I had, that peace that I had over me before I went to sleep, I felt it again. So I felt it was safe to get up. And I got up. When I got up, I looked over at my siblings. They seemed to be all okay. And I just ran upstairs screaming blood of murder. And I was like, Mama, 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 somebody just raped me. And so she came downstairs and she came midway and she was screaming like, because when I tell you I screamed because I wanted everybody to wake up in the house and in the neighborhood of what just happened. And so there I was, this 13-year-old girl, covered, bloodied in my nightgown, clothes ripped off me, afraid, scared, don't know what to do. Just wanted to get in the tub and just clean this stinky person off of me and the stuff that he did to me. But my mom, thank God, she said, no, we have to wait till the police get here. So we waited for the police to come out that night. And when they finally got there, it was two cops. And I call this, and I do it for a reason because this is also an area when you're fighting for victims that needs changing or reform. I call it my second victimization because the two cops that came out to see me were not trauma informed at all. And when I say that because they asked me questions like, are you sure it wasn't your boyfriend? Are you sure you didn't let him in the house? Are you sure you were not having sex and didn't want your mama to find out? I mean, just things that automatically make you question yourself because they come in with already with doubt or not believing you of the things that happened to you. Now I'm sitting here with because at the time there was like a scar in my neck where he had left the knife print. I'm covered in blood. I'm looking crazed. I'm like just a mad girl. And you're asking me these questions as if you don't believe anything that just happened. That did something to me. That really did something with my mental on top of the sexual assault itself. And then I get to the hospital. We went to Parkland, which was our main hospital at the time. And when I got there, that was to me, that was even more traumatizing because now they have me on a gurney in a hallway, no privacy, no anything, and the cops are still questioning me. The family, it's like my mom is not allowed to be with me, and it's like it's chaotic to me. And I'm like, at 13 years old, no child should have to go through this. The rape was enough, and now I'm going through this added trauma. And so I go into the same exam. My mom couldn't come in with me for the exam for that. They poked and they probed and they did this. Of course, the exam takes hours to complete. After all of this trauma on July 31st, 1985, I'm thinking that, they're going to find this monster. They're going to find this person that did this to me. Because I also saw some cops came in and did fingerprints. I said they're going to locate him and get him. This is my idea. They're going to get him. He's not going to get away with this. And so I went to live with my aunt because I told my mom that night I couldn't go back to that apartment. There was no way because he told me that if he saw the police come out, he was going to kill me and my family because he knew my family. I'm not knowing if that's true or not because I wasn't familiar with this area. And so my family member had already been living there, whom we had resided with. So we moved. I go with my aunt the next day. The cops came out like the next day or the second day, and they brought all these big books of photos. So they're going through the photos and they're trying to help me identify who they thought the rapist was. I didn't know how that system worked. But what I did know was that what I did notice were the same guy was in several books and they kept pointing him out to me. And they would ask me, "Are you sure it was not him?" And finally I go, "I told you in the last book, it's not him. That's the same guy." I think I irritated them a little bit. And so that's when the books closed up and they left me. Uh, and now, as we see, I understand how probably a lot of innocent guys or people behind bars because of people trying to identify them, which is the worst thing to do when somebody's been traumatized, is to try to identify. But I had a sketch of this guy, and I wouldn't dare take a chance of just saying that looks like him, even though you're trying to keep putting a familiar face in my mind to recapture, what I saw. So time goes on. And here I am, this 13-year-old girl that was once a straight A student, had wanted to be an attorney, got accepted into Law Magnet. I ended up going to Law Magnet my freshman year, and it's like the thrill was gone. I got into fights. I was just not the same person. I was so angry and I was so bitter. And as time went on, it seemed like I was getting worse. I was getting worse with it. I became a recluse. I became pretty much violent in my own right. My trust issues were gone. I didn't want to fool with police officers. I didn't trust them. They weren't, because they weren't on my side. I hated to look at it as a instance where it was because I was a little black girl in the projects, but deep down, that's how I felt. But I tried to keep denying that. I tried to say that they care about me, and someday they're going to tell me we've been looking high and low for your perpetrator. Well, needless to say, after all my years of trauma, all my years of more added confusion, more run-ins with almost sexual assaults and other crimes, I'm still finding that I'm just feeling that I'm alone in this world with my trauma. And I have to figure out a way to deal with it if I want to survive. And so I got married. I met my husband. I've been married over 30 years now, and such a breath of fresh air. I didn't realize it at first. I just knew he was different, um, a real gentleman, respect me and who I am in my space, and that was something I wasn't used to anymore because my mind had been made up that if a man wants something from you, he's going to take it anyway, and that's a poor way of thinking, but that's now my new norm. And so it was hard for me just to enter into relationships with people without thinking that was their mindset. Uh, and my husband, it was a very tedious job for him to prove to me that he was not that type of person. But needless to say, when I saw that, I would say my first 5 years of marriage was really rough on mostly him, not me. It was hard on me mentally and emotionally, but it was really rough on him because I was literally making him pay for everything that happened to me. But I had to stop. I had to step back because I would see my family now. I have a son involved and my husband, and I see how much damage I'm causing them because of the damage that was done to me. And it's like I realized that that's not fair. This is not how this is the way it should supposed to be. This is not living. And I was not living my life to my full capacity. I was not living my life to what I am supposed to be. I knew I could be. And what was happening is I was suffering and allowing everybody else around me to suffer. And that was not fair. Uh, so I turned back to my faith in God. And I was like, okay, Lord, okay, I'm used to hearing about physical healings when you touch, and if you're blind, you can see. If you're deaf, you can hear. If you can't, if you're lame, you can walk. But what about this mental demonic phase that seems to be handling me? Can you do that as well? And I know he can because he's done it before. when he cast out devils and things of that nature. And I realized these are nothing but demonic spirits that I'm holding on to, and I have to release them to him. So I began my journey. And as I began my journey of healing, of prayer and faith and supplications, it was hard. I didn't realize that I had an opportunity for counseling, because in our culture back then, it was like Black folks don't go see counselors. So I didn't even know there was an option for me to see a counselor and talk about these things. So I had to rely on the only counselor I knew, and that was my faith in God. And I began that journey. And it was a long journey, it was a tedious journey, and everything that I didn't want to be a part of me, or wasn't supposed to be, I began to pray and ask God to take it away or reveal it to me. Some of the things he revealed, how I had turned, was very ugly. And I'm like, but this is how I cope. This is how I deal with people. But, it was like, no, this is not how you do it. This is not how you live. This is not how you treat people. This is not how you go towards people. Everybody is not the reason for your assault. Everybody is not the reason for your trauma. And so you have to deal with those issues when they come, but you really have to take care of yourself. So here I am on my journey of healing, and as I get to a point where I feel, and it took from like 95 to 2005 on this journey. And as I'm here in 2005, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling refreshed. I'm like, wow, that was such, I needed that, Lord. It was like I was sojourning by myself, even though I was still married. It's like, but I was doing things for me finally. And when I got there, I said, okay, so now I have to help others. I got to go back and I got to go rescue those other victims, because if I went through all the hell that I went through, I can only imagine what they are going through. And as I began to research and do things, I began to understand this is why so many women, even men, but women particularly, end up doing drugs and alcohol and prostitution and just angry about stuff. And I had no idea, because some of those things I didn't deal with. But I began to research, and I realized, man, this torment is deep, that rape and sexual trauma brings in the lives of victims. And we have to go back and try to save them. We have to go back and let them know there is hope. We have to let them know that there is life after death, because to me that was a physical death when I was raped. And so I began this journey, and what I thought would be great ice cream on my cake is if I could ever find out who it was that raped me, because I had heard nothing, absolutely nothing. My husband told me, he said, well, pray about it. And I said, okay, I'll pray about it, because I started writing a little self help book. My first book is called Breathe Again. And I was putting my 7 steps in there to give to survivors, but I wanted to know about my case. So I prayed about it. And when I prayed about it, I think I started in the end of 2005, and in the beginning of 2006, I was at home here where I'm at now, and I was raped on my couch, on the couch where I was living at, and I lay on the couch in my front room, and I was watching TV while my husband be in the back room watching sports. And so I told my husband, I said, you know what? I'm gonna go get a newspaper. And he was like, okay, for what? Because there's a backstory with that. When I was when my in my victimization mode, I got the newspaper every day delivered to read the obituary section. I thought about death all the time. And it's almost like it intrigued me to find out how people died. It's like all I wanted to know was the bad news. So I got the newspaper every day. So I had cut when I my healing, I had cut getting out the newspaper, because that's the only reason I got it. So when I told him I was going for the newspaper, he was like, okay, why are you getting the paper? I was like, I don't know. So I went and got the paper, went to the gas station, came back home, got back on the couch, and I just started reading it. And there in the metropolitan section, there was a section. The Dallas the Police Department has started this initiative called the CCAP program, the Sexual Assault Cold Case Program. And this initiative began because of the Debbie Smith Act, which was federal funding that had been enacted for money for cold cases that the police departments had sitting on their shelves. Well, what happened was, I'm like, wait a minute, my case is a cold case. So let me call and see if they're going to investigate, or maybe they have investigated my case to find out what's going on. So I called Sergeant Welsh Department. They called me back like the next day because they took my information. And I told them, I said, look, I gave him my maiden name. I said, I was 13 years old. I said, I don't remember the exact date, what happened. I said, I was in the West Dallas area and it had to be a stranger on stranger. I said, it was a stranger. I did not know this person that broke into my home. And I wanted to find out details about my rape kit. And so they said, okay, give us some time. We'll get back with you. A few days later, Sergeant Welsh came, and well, he called me and he asked me as much as they could remember to find my file. And I told him, I said, all I knew was West Dallas. I don't remember the address. A lot of stuff was foggy, real a lot. I mean, a lot, and the details of it. And so they were like, okay, we'll find out. So then Sergeant Welsh, they found my records, and then he wanted to come meet me. And so when he came to meet me, it was like instant connection with Sergeant Welsh and I. And he was like, "So, Lavinia, what are your plans?" I said, "Well, my plans is I'm here to go back and rescue other victims. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it. I don't know what God has in store for me, but this is my plan." And it starts here with me finding out who it was that raped me. And so, he explained to me it could be a needle in a haystack or whatever. And I was like, okay, that's fine, that's fine. And he said, but we'll get it done for you. We'll pull the case and we'll see what happened. So, needless to say, fast forward when they pulled everything, come to find out they hadn't done anything, nothing. Nothing had been done for over 20 years. And as a matter of fact, what really gut punched me was that I found out that my kit was sitting, I was raped July 31st. They put my evidence up August 2nd, which means that, and they had suspended for no evidence. And the evidence, I was the evidence. They had semen, they had it on my underwear, on my nightgown, they had all of this stuff in the evidence box and his evidence, but they put it suspended. In other words, they closed it out. Uh, and so that was kind of frustrating to me to think, because I'm like, all this time, I'm thinking you guys were looking for my perpetrator and you were doing absolutely nothing. That left a very bad taste in my mouth. Sergeant Wells shared with me that there were thousands of kids on the shelves in Texas. And I was like, these are people's lives that are sitting here. What do you mean there's thousands of kids? And so I started doing more research and I found out there was hundreds of thousands, almost 500,000 in our country, in our nation. And I was like, you know what? This is not going to happen. This is not. And I knew then that was my purpose. That was what I was supposed to do with this. I was to go back and not only speak for victims, but to make sure that these rape kits were off the shelves. So I collaborated with Sergeant Welsh and I began to speak for him in different press conferences because we wanted other survivors to come forward and have their cases reopened to because they had to use that money for these kids. And so a lot of survivors were reluctant. A lot of survivors knew that because it's the same thing Sergeant Welch told me. They may not get a hit if he's never created a felony. He also said that I wouldn't be able to prosecute because of this those statute of limitations. And I missed two statute of limitations, mind you. The first one was 5 years after the rape, and then they had passed a law, and it was 10 years after my 18th birthday. So this was all of this was like just adding fuel to my fire. And I'm like, these injustices have to stop. Uh, because I'm thinking back to how the police treated me that night, to how I was done at the hospital, to now even thinking 21 years later, how these things are still happening for victims of sexual assault. There is no respect for a victim of sexual assault. There is no, and even though I knew there was no respect for Black girls that were victims of sexual assault, I was also learning that they had absolutely no respect for any victim of sexual assault. And my mindset was that I was going to change that. And I believe that by the grace of God, that He had called me to do that, to make a difference. So I didn't know how to begin, Eileen. I didn't know where, but I just started. I just did it. I just started writing letters to Congress, started writing letters to the president at the time, to the police departments, to my local legislators, my council people. I'm knocking on their doors, and I'm like, do you know that rape victims are sitting, have evidence sitting on shelves and nobody's doing anything about it? And some of them still have time to prosecute, some have not, missed it, but still they have a right to know who it was that raped them or whatever happened. And we're denying them that right. And so at first, I got a lot of resistance. I got a lot of runarounds. I got a lot of, oh no, the law has changed. Lavinia, oh no. But I didn't stop. I said, no, it's not. It hasn't changed, not to my satisfaction. You guys are sugarcoating things and you're passing me off. And I can see it because I've been through it, but I was persistent in my fight. Sometimes it seemed lonely, it seemed quiet, it seemed like nobody was listening to me. I would have CNN call me to come do some live Nancy Grace show. I would go speak and I would just talk about it. And I was not trying to offend anyone in the process. But if they were offended, that means you need to get yourself together. You need to clean it up. You need to right your wrong. And what I felt, I was so angry with the police, but when Sergeant Welsh, he saw everything and he apologized to me for how the cops treated me back then, and I was thankful for that. And that to me was like also an aha moment. This is what our entire system need to do to victims. You need to apologize for the things you did wrong and how you didn't treat them properly in the beginning. And one way of doing that is going back and getting these kids off the shelves and letting them know that you matter, we care about you, we were wrong. It's okay to say I was wrong. I was out of order. My departments, they were not trained. It's okay to admit that. It's called ability. And that's why I'm so big on accountability, because I'm like, you can make such a drastic change in people's lives if you just show that you are accountable for your actions and for your failures. And so this is where I was with that. And so here we are, fighting from 2006, and I'm just minding my little business, not thinking anything of it. I learned I was bipartisan, because I was like, this has, because they were like, Lavinia, you, because I work with Senator Cornyn and Wendy Davis, and one's Republican, one's Democratic, and I'm like, I don't care about that. I'm going with everybody. This is a everybody issue. This is not just one party's issue when it comes to rape and victims. This is everybody has to be involved when it comes to solving and resolving these issues. If we want to eradicate rape, eradicate sexual assault, eradicate sex trafficking, eradicate domestic violence, eradicate all of these sex crimes, we're going to have to come together. We can't stay apart and say, "Oh well, I'm a Dem, or I'm a Republican." No, that's not going to work. That doesn't even make sense to me in my brain. We got to come together and collaborate. So that's what we did. I would work with Senator Cornyn. We worked with the Safer Act, and we worked on the Debbie Smith Act, and I worked with Senator Winnie Davis at the time, and she worked with trying to get the statute of limitations removed in the state of Texas, and all of those things. And so we just fought together collectively. And when Senator Davis, she went up for governorship in Texas, and when she lost that bid to Governor Abbott, she stepped back in her own organization for a minute, and I worked with her also in her organization, Deeds Not Words, that she founded, and she introduced Victoria Niave to me. And House Representative Victoria Niave, she's the one, and I call her my soul sister. I love her to death. I love her to death. When we connected, we were like, boom. It was like magic, like sparks. And I began to, because she had saw the I Am Evidence video about the rape kits, and that moved her. And so then she knew the work I did, and so we collaborated and we worked. And I would go with her and be a voice and share my story and press conferences and do this and do that, and it was amazing. And I'm like, we're finally getting somewhere. And so she's formed a task force, And she brought in experts, law officials, judges on the task force. I was a part of the task force, and we were trying to figure out what can we do to change this law to make it with the statute of limitations to hold these rapists accountable, to start a tracking system. And we just got together because I've been on the Congress Sexual Assault Task Force, been up to Washington. I had been on Joyful Heart, a task force, doing a roundtable with them with our different ideas. I had been to the OVC again in Washington on a roundtable with my ideas of how to do this. And so now I'm back home with her, and I thought this is the best place to be is at home, and hopefully get some changes started here. So with that, we had our meetings, and they were always powerful, and great. The task force meetings, and so they were ready. They said to take it before legislation. And I was like, awesome. I had all my engagements, so I was busy. I'm like, well, I'm gonna leave Austin now, and I'm gonna go back because I gotta go speak. Didn't think anything else of it. I was just happy that someone was finally listening to the voice of victims, because that's what I felt like. I was the voice of victims. And so I was outside the library, and I got a call from Victoria Nave, and she said, Lavinia, there's something we want to ask you. And I said, okay. And she was all excited. She said, we got a low bill on, low number on the bill, and this, that, and that means, and she's explaining all of this stuff to me. I had absolutely no idea what she was talking about. So I was like, okay, okay, okay. And then she goes, and she said, here's the other thing. She said, because you worked so hard for this, Lavinia, and this is your work, and da da da, we want to name it after you, the Lavinia Masters Act. And I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean? What do you mean, Victoria? She said, we want to name it after you, House Bill 8, the Lavinia Masters Act. I started boo-hooing, boo-hooing, boo-hooing. I said, no, 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 no. That's not why I'm doing this. I don't need the spotlight. I don't need my name attached. I just want to make sure victims are taken care of. Those kids are removed from them shelves. I want them to be empowered. And she said, and this is why we're naming it after you, because that is exactly what you've done. She said, you've done the work, Lavinia. And so I humbly accepted it. And it was so exciting to go through the whole process, because I remember growing up, we would watch ABC Mornings. They'll teach you about I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill, and how the whole process worked. And I loved history in school, and to see history unfold before my eyes, and I'm a part of it, was even more. It was just beautiful. And to watch, go down, and we do the testimonies, and how they would listen, and they were like all for it, just like I had no opposition from anybody, and it passed unanimously from the House and the Senate floor. And it just blew me away. It really blew me away. um, and it was funny because some of them were like, Lavinia, you didn't expect this to pass. I didn't know. Honestly, I didn't know. I just didn't know. When you've seen so many failures in your justice system, when you've seen so many kickbacks and things that seem to go against you, it sometimes it casts a lot of doubt. And no matter how promising some things may seem or should be, they're still in the back of your mind. It's like you expect the worst to happen. Be prepared. But everything went over unanimously the first time. And so that was the birth of House Bill 8, the Lavinia Masters Act. And that was actually my rebirth. And that's how I look at it. That was my rebirth after something so tragic. And I still enjoy doing the work I do of advocating for victims and speaking. And I get a lot more engagements now, but that's fine. I never get tired of sharing with them, because that is my hopes of empowering victims of sexual violence to come forward and share their stories and realize how much power they have when they do that. How many chains they break, not only for themselves, but for others when they do that. Because people look at you and say, if she can do it, maybe I can do it too. I can move forward. I can live. I can breathe again. I don't have to hold on to this toxic that's within me for so long. So I'm excited about it all. It's like a constant. I eat, live, and breathe this work, because to see a survivor come out of victimization, or to see a victim that's struggling, and they don't lose hope because they know that they can do it, and they're depending on you to do certain things or say things, or you said something or you encourage them. That gives me so much healing on top of my healing, and it empowers me even more to keep fighting. And it's an humbling experience to be able to be in this position, because I know what the enemy meant for evil, God has turned it all good. And I know that that aggravates him, because I won't stop singing. I won't stop singing of his praises. I won't stop singing of how awesome I am, as a survivor. And even though it was horrific, the things that happened to me, it was horrific of the people I encountered, horrific of how my case was dealt with. In the end, I still have joy. And that's the important part to me. I want other victims to realize in the end, you can still have joy after all your trauma, after everything you go through, no matter how heinous it is, and no, you'll never forget what happened to you, but as you allow yourself to heal, it gets sweeter in a sense. It gets sweeter because you realize you didn't defeat me, I defeated you. You tried to beat me, but you didn't win. And that does something for me, because I think about that. It's like you tried to just tear me apart from this world and make me feel like I was less than, but I realize I'm greater than that. And because I'm greater than that, I'm greater than you, the things that happened to me. And it just boosts your esteem all over again, because I had low self-esteem and I needed that. And it wasn't because of the law. The law was, I mean, I was feeling this way before the law, but the law to me was like God saying, well done. You keep doing what you're doing, but this is added for you, because I need more survivors and victims to see that. So keep it up. Don't stop now. And so I'm like, okay, this is one of my crowns of glory that I will wear. And I will say, keep fighting and keep pushing until you're able to overcome and thrive through your pain.
Wow. What a powerful testimony, Lavinia. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you. Thank
sharing.
you.
Like you said,
Thank you.
from a girl of
Yes.
misery to a woman of ministry. I
Yes.
mean, I'm
Yes.
sitting here like taking notes because there are like there's so much information I'm learning from
Yes.
you, and the
Thank
hope
you.
and the joy that brings out
Yes.
of you during the healing
Yes.
journey. And as you may know,
Yes.
the purpose of the show is to bring hope, love, and unity. And
Yes.
you
Yes.
covered all of them. You mentioned about,
Yes. Yes.
this is not just my problem. This is
Yes.
everybody's problem. So we have
Yes.
to join
Yes.
forces. And you mentioned about
Yes.
the healing journey, and that when you speak up and break the silence, and that actually empowers yourself and kind of add
Yes.
another like a point to the healing
Yes.
journey and bring the
Yes.
light at the end of the tunnel. I've got so many
Yes.
questions for you, Lavinia.
You
Wow.
just go. Just go.
Yeah. So you mentioned about the victims, about this hope and healing. I think let's just start from here. So what advice
Okay.
would you give someone who is going through it now? A lot of victims and survivors, and as you mentioned, this
Mhm.
is a healing journey, and everyone's journey is
Yes.
different. And
It's
I always
different.
tell people, like, it's not a comparison like mine is worse than you, or it doesn't.
Yes. Yes.
Instead, we're in this together. We support each other, and that's why we
Yes.
want to
Yes.
provide this like safe platform. So how would you share with
Yes.
people who are going through that and they just don't see the light? I remember you say you question God, why is this
Right.
is happening to me? Can you share with us?
Right.
I know it's like I did the calculation from 1985 to 2019, and that's like 34 years of time.
Yes.
But that's a
Yes.
whole journey. How did you get from
Yes.
why this did happen to me, God, to now thank God? God
Yes.
is, say kudos to
Yes.
you,
Yes.
Lavinia. You did this. So please share with us.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing you say that, because that was a question I had. I had this, why did it happen to me? I had those moments where I cried, where I felt alone in the darkness, because and that's an analogy I like to give. Like, you feel like you are the only person in this world and it's completely dark. It's just total darkness. And what you have to realize is that you are not alone. And you have to see that light. And light will always overcome darkness. But what we fail to realize is a lot of times we focus so much on the darkness there. It's not focus on the light. And that's what I had to do. I had to focus so much on everything that was happening to me. I had to shift my focus on everything that was happening to me or had happened to me. And I had to start finding those little things that was great for me. That God had accomplished in my life. But because you're so stuck on the bad things, you don't even see the little things, you know. And there were a lot of little things. That's some of the things I like to tell survivors when I do life coaching. I want you to write down those little things that really matter in your life. That really, you know what? I really like to see my baby smile. I really like to have those conversations with my mom on the phone. I really like to go in the park and walk with the little things that we need to focus on. And then when you focus on that, you can focus on the conversations I had with my mom and the time she talked about this, or my baby when my baby does that on the first time he started walking. It's a little, and then you start seeing the light. Stop focusing on everything that's dark, because it's the world is full of darkness, full of it. And you have to just reshift, refocus on everything that's around you, and appreciate who you are, for one. And and that's the hardest part, because we think that we're cursed, we're not worthy to be loved, we don't deserve love, that we're filthy. And I'm speaking from experience. That's how I can just spew that out, because that's how I felt. But then I realized I didn't like to take pictures. You can hardly find any pictures of me when I was a little girl. Now for my social media, you see me cheese all the time. And people say, "But you're so beautiful." I didn't think that way about myself. And then when I realized, and I began my healing process, I realized the reason why I didn't think that way is because I figured that's why my perpetrator attacked me, because it was lust of his eye first. He saw me, and he was visually, and that was my mindset. So that was so embedded in me that I didn't want anybody else to find me attractive. And so I had issues with that. But then once I realized I don't own the monster issues, I need to own my issues. That helps in your healing process. Some of that stuff, it's not even yours to own. It's not even yours to deal with. Those are his issues. So I'm going to accept everything, the big head, the gaps in the teeth, the dimples, the smile, all of that. That's me. And it's beautiful, because that's how God created me to be. And that's how you have to look at it. So you have to get to a point where you just have to refocus everything and find that light, because that light is there, and be grateful. Be grateful for what you have and who you are, and be grateful that you survived. You survived it, and you survived it for a purpose. And in that, you can find your purpose within your pain. Because I'm telling you, if you don't, darkness will just consume you, and it'll keep you down, and it'll keep you depressed, and it'll keep you down and out. But you got to find your light. You got to find that light, and that light is there. It's always been there. And you just got to be able to just refocus it, and focus on you. Focus on your relationship with God. And if for those who say, "Well, I don't believe in God," well, find something that you believe in, and you focus on that, and you find your light. But I recommend God. But if you got family, friends, or whatever you decide to do, you find it, so you can see that light, because that light is there, and it's waiting for you, and you just got to walk into it. And when you start walking, what you will realize, there's people like Eileen, there's people like myself. We're here to help you get to that light, but you got to open your mouth, and you got to let people know that I'm suffering. I'm having a hard time. I can't do this. I don't believe I can. That's the purpose of us finding that light. That's the purpose of, like you said, joining forces together so we can help rescue others. I believe it would be a travesty in God's eyes if he gifted us like he has to survive these type of traumas, and we don't go back and rescue others, or try to help somebody, like you have your platform with your podcast. I believe it would be a total dishonor to him and a disgrace if we didn't do this. because we know there is hope. We know there is life after death. We know there is a future, but we refuse to share that with others and give them the opportunity for the same thing, to believe not just in the whole healing journey, believe in God and believe in us and see that this is the real deal, and that's why I won't stop. I said, okay, how old I get, how sick I get with my health issues, I'm not going to stop, because it's worth fighting for. It's worth fighting for. And living in darkness is not worth anything. But whether a lot of victims realize it or not, you're fighting to stay in that darkness, and it's not worth it. It's killing you slowly. It's causing you all kind of health issues, mental issues, and separating you from family members and loved ones. And you're always wondering why I can't keep friends, why I can't keep a husband, a boyfriend, a girlfriend. What's wrong? Because you're fighting yourself. You're fighting against yourself. But if you fight to live and for life in that light, I promise you, you'll see a big difference.
Wow. Now I wrote this down as well. There is life after death. you know,
Yes, yes,
I put stickers just like you said. I am enough. Like that's pretty much
yes,
what it says. So I put on the
yes,
the mirror everywhere and different
yes,
stickers.
yes,
And every day I look at the mirror, I look at it, and I have the confidence in myself. And this is
yes,
so powerful what you're suggesting
yes, it
to
is.
people, because whether
Yes,
regardless this is sexual assault, domestic violence, sex trafficking,
yes,
rape, anything,
yes.
what they take from you is illusional, and they make you
Mm-hmm,
lose the
mm-hmm.
self confidence. And this is
Yes,
something
they
that
do.
you need to own it, because this is yours,
Yes,
but you just have to
it
own
is
it
yours.
again.
Yes,
So this is
yes,
so powerful. And
yes,
yes, I think this will be so helpful for our survivors, victims, and who are going through this journey. And as Lavinia said, this journey is you're not gonna forget about it. This is like
yes.
the emotional wound, the psychological wound,
Mm-hmm.
and the mental one will never heal. It's a matter of how you
Yes,
cope with it and focus on the
yes,
positive things and know that we are here for you. I hear the passion from Lavinia, and we are both here for you. We have the
yes,
passion. We're gonna fight until everyone is free, and we're gonna
yes,
fight to help and to make sure that we free a person one at a time. Wow, this is
yes.
this is so helpful. Thank you. And
And you said wound, Eileen, I'm sorry. You said wound. I like to look. It is a wound. It is a wound, but I like to look at it. The analogy I want you guys to picture in your mind that as I heal, as I empower, it turns into just a scar. It's just a scar now, because a wound. A lot of times, a wound you can re-injure. You can open it up, and it can bleed again, and it can get infected. Anything can happen with a wound. So I like in my mind that I'm going through so much healing, so much change that it's going to just turn into a scar. And when it's just a scar, it's just something that's visible now. It's not going to open back up. It's healed. It's a reminder basically. But I would like to just come out of that wound mentality, because when I think of a wound can be open, it can be re-injured, it can get infected. But now it's a scar. It's fine. It's just a reminder. And okay, it's my past. It reminded me of what happened, but I'm bigger than this wound. I'm still beautiful. I'm still powerful. I'm still enough. And as I say every day, I tell my people, sometimes I do my live on Facebook, I said, make sure you set your atmosphere every day. And that's what you do when you do your affirmations in your mirror. However you choose to set your atmosphere, set it every day. You take control of how your day is going to be. When you wake up in the morning, boom. First I'm saying, Lord, I thank you for waking me up. What greatness am I getting into today? Even if everything seems to be falling apart. Another saying I have, I say I do like this. People say, what are you doing? That's my reset button. I'm gonna reset this. I've got to reset my day because I got to keep pushing. It's your mindset. It's your mindset and how you view and deal with everything. So look at your wounds as they may be wounds now, and they have to heal. They do start out as wounds, as Eileen said. But look at those wounds and say, one day this wound is going to be a scar. And I know it won't get infected anymore. I know it won't bleed anymore. I know it won't come back open. Nobody will aggravate it so much where it just comes. Because you can't now, I can honestly say my rape and my childhood sexual abuse, all the things that happened to me, they're just scars. So you can't say anything or do anything to me to aggravate them. I'm like, yep, that's what happened. Yep, that's what did. Yep. Okay, because they're just scars. They're scars now. They're not going to get infected. They're not going to bleed. They're not going to ooze. They're not going to hurt because they're just mental scars now. But I'm glad we had this opportunity to share with your audience, and I pray that somebody is helped and will continue to seek help and continue on their healing journey after their sexual trauma that has occurred in their life.
Absolutely. So well said. So well said. Yeah. Thank you for the correction. I really believe that, the scar is actually a sign to show that
Yes,
you have been through that, and that
yes,
empowers you to make you
yes,
stronger. And look at
yes,
Lavinia now,
yes,
how, like you mentioned, the joy
yes,
that's from the within.
yes,
And this is
yes,
what we want our all of our victims and survivors to
yes, yes,
become
yes,
one day.
yes,
And
yes,
just know that there is light and there's life after the
yes.
death.
Yes.
Now,
And work on it. Work on your joy internally so it can be externally. Don't worry about, because a lot of times in the beginning when I was a victim, I was so worried about the outside that we were a mask. And on the inside we were still tormented. So work on from the inside out. It was what I'm trying to say to your listeners. Make sure we're working on the inside out. Don't worry about how the outside look right now, because I'm pretty sure everybody's used to that. But on the inside, make sure you're working on that inside. That inside is that mental and that emotional. And I promise you, before you know it, people are going to say, you know what, something's different about her. She don't have that attitude she used to have. She normally would have cussed me out, but she didn't cuss me out today. So work on that internal joy, and it's going to automatically show on the outside, and it won't be fake. It won't be a facade. It won't be a mask anymore. You can burn all your masks you used to wear, and you can honestly walk into the joy that you are in now as an overcomer and a thriver after sexual trauma.
thank you. This is
You're welcome.
wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. So to the people who are supporters, you mentioned like it's such a blessing that you have been married for over 30 years, and
Yes.
congratulations. And
Thank
this
you.
is what we want to bring, and we want to ask you for a picture of you with your husband so that we can add to our
Okay.
show as well. But
Yes.
share with us. You mentioned like the first 5 years, it was kind of a struggle more on his
Woo.
side, right? So
Yes.
to the people who are listening, now that you guys have been through
That.
that, what are the
Woo.
advices from the supporter side, from your loved one side? What can they do
Yes.
to help you? Because it's really essential. Like you mentioned, you're not alone. To begin with, God has been with you all along, and He sent this
Yes.
wonderful husband to you. So
Yes.
sometimes you have to go through this first. And so for the people who are
Yes. Yes.
supporters, what are the advices you will give to them?
Well, the first and foremost advice I want to give Eileen is, if you've ever been a victim of a sexual violence, whether sex trafficking, rape, even domestic violence, you ever been, because those are traumas by themselves, childhood sexual abuse. And if you feel like you are about to be engaged with a person that will ultimately marry you, or you're going to get married, please share that trauma with them. That is nothing that you should keep a secret, because I promise you it's going to come out, it's going to show. I shared my trauma with my husband. I was shocked. That's how I knew something was different about him, because I didn't tell anybody except for my first boyfriend that took me through. He already saw the victimization of me, and you will have those who will see that weak link in you, and they will take full advantage of it. But it was something, like I said, it was something different about my husband, and I shared with him. And I wasn't even serious with him. That was the crazier part about it. I wasn't. It was, but he was so different. He was such a gentleman. But I knew that I had quirks about me. I knew that I would fly off the coop, as my grandmother used to say. I knew that my personality would just change from here to there. And he was such a mellow guy, such a down to earth guy, that I felt that I needed to be honest with him, so I wouldn't scare him off. Because it did seem, when I did meet got nice guys, I would scare them off. Because they were like, my tag was, she crazy. So I told him this, and he was like, wow. And he said, you don't seem like you've been through anything like that. And I was like, okay, well, I must be putting off a real good mask with this guy. And I just told him all my, and before I know it, he wanted to hear more about it. So I told him all my fears with it, all of my trauma, all of my nightmares that I was having. I just shared everything with him. And he told me at that moment, we weren't even dating. We were dating, but we weren't dating. We were just like trying to feel each other out, go out to eat here and go out to eat there. And he said that, well, he said, as long as you're with me, you'll never have to worry about that again. I'm going to protect you. And I'm like, nobody's ever said that to me. They were willing to protect me. And so that drew me closer to him. um, we end up dating a little while longer. We got married. Well, we moved in first and we got married. And after we got married, it's like that's when everything flipped out on me. It flipped out on me. I started having real insecure, real true insecurities, because now it's like, what do I do with a man every day? Will he you know, be faithful to me? Will he be just turn on me and do like other men when they find out they have a wife that's been victimized? Will I mean all kind of stuff. So it's like I would just create stuff in my mind to start arguments, to start confusion, to start drama, just being mean. Just that was me. I'm not lying. I was. And I know I gave him a lot of emotional scars, and I used to even tell him, boy, you probably need to go to counseling after me. But he put up with it. He dealt with it. He would get quiet sometimes with me. It was just amazing. It was really amazing uh, to see him and his strength. I needed that. And I believe God know I needed that. I needed to see that, because it's like I would deliberately be an evil little witch to see how he would respond. And he would just be like, I don't know what you're going through right now. Do you want to go to your mama's house and visit her? Or I'm gonna go play basketball with my brother, and it's like, what? What is it with this guy? But he would always come back, because he was also raised in the on raised knowing God. And he would always come back, and he would tell me, you weren't right, and we'll read the Bible, and he'll give me scriptures, and he'll try to teach me how a wife is supposed to be, and I know you struggle, and it's like he was always pacifying me. And I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to somebody caring for me for who I was and loving me for who I was. And he would tell me he doesn't just love me for who I am, that God loved me for who I am. And he saw me for who I was. Because, like I told you in the beginning of my marriage, I was mad at my husband and God. I had no reason to be, but I felt they didn't love me for who I was. And he was like, I'm here. I'm showing you I love you for who you are. God has always been there, but he never promised that bad things wouldn't happen in this world, because everybody has free will. And so you will have those who will free will harm you, and do those things and have no remorse about it or no concern. And so I began to just study this about him and study our relationship and study how he was and how supportive he was. And I would, in my nightmares, I get up in the middle of the night screaming and crying until 96. And I was seeing the rapist come in the house. He would get up with me. He'd drive me all over Dallas. He consoled me. And he was like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And in my mind, I said, you know what? It has to be. I have to change, because I don't want, because I think you get to a point where you realize even those that are with you, sometimes they may get tired, or you feel that way. They may get to a point where they say, you know what, I've had enough of this madness. How long can anybody stand this? And I didn't want that to happen. I didn't want that to happen. I didn't want my son not understanding why my mama always screaming and hollering and fighting and going crazy and cussing and throwing bottles at the cars. And I'm like, this is not a life to live. I'm not living my life. I'm gonna end up in jail somewhere. I'm gonna end up in somewhere because this is not normal. And I had to get to that point where I said, okay, I got to calm down. I told my husband I wanted a divorce at first. And he and I saw, I really heard him when I said that, because he didn't understand why. And I was like, it's not you, it's me. And so he was like, well, if it's you, why are you going to make me suffer? That kind of threw me off when he said that. I'm like, how are you suffering? And it's because he loved me so much and he wanted me to get better. And me talking about walking away and destroying my family would make them suffer. And so I analyzed that, and I had another miscarriage because I wanted more kids. And that's when I began to just pray about it. Well, you got to show me what is going on, because what happens is a lot of times as a victim you see everything what's wrong with everybody else, but you don't see what you're doing. And that's what he began to do. He began to show me the things I was doing wrong, and I began to become accountable for my actions and the words I said. When the Bible says there's life and death in the tongue, it is, you can say some hurtful things to people. You can almost destroy them by your mouth and the words you say. And this is what I was doing. But they still held on to me because they held on to that potential. They held on to that light. That light that I didn't see is a light they held on to, him and my son. And they knew that their mom was a great woman. They would be like, the phrase out here, she's sweet, but she mean as hell. That was like an oxymoron to me, because it's like I couldn't tolerate a lot. I didn't want to deal with a lot. Let me just be by myself. But that's a lonely place to be by yourself, especially when you're making it happen. You really don't want that loneliness. You really want to be embraced and encouraged and loved and received by others. And trust me, there are many people that love you. There are many people that receive you. I get so overwhelmed now, Eileen, because I'm not used to this attention. And for people to genuinely just love me and be crazy about me, it makes me nervous sometimes. And I'm like, stop, you guys are too kind. And they're like, oh my God, Lavinia, you have no idea how much I love you. And I'm like, no, no, don't love me. But I love it because I love that the change that I allowed to happen in my life. And that's what I'd love for survivors to know, that you have that power to make that change in your life, where people will genuinely love you for you, no matter how messed up you think you are. And that's how it was with my husband. He loved me for me, because he said, when I met you, before you shared, he said, I kind of figured there's going to be some things about you when you told me. He said, but still, I saw the beautiful person that was in you. He said, I saw it. He said, you were smart and you were intelligent. He said, I wasn't just looking. He said, yeah, you were attracted to the eye. He said, but I wasn't just looking at that. He said, you as the person made you beautiful. And it was just, and I was like, is he a charmer or what is he? But I got it. I eventually got it. And so I'm thankful that I didn't turn away from my marriage. I didn't move haphazardly, uh, out of all of my own fears and my insecurities. And I apologized to him, for how I was. And I even sometimes today, now we joke about it. I said, you remember when? And he said, oh, he's just going, oh Lord. And I'm like, I feel so bad. I was so crazy, but it was like, it's now we laugh about it. And our prayer is that he drives trucks. My prayer is that he come off the road. I would love for us to do podcasts for couples, marriages that have been been victimized by sexual violence, because you don't even realize the trauma as a victim yourself that you take your spouses and your families and your loved ones through, and they almost need therapy, after dealing with it, because it has a direct effect on them, and not just from what you take them through personally, like a personal attack, but just seeing you go through all that, seeing you go through that pain and the transformation, but they're right there for you. It's almost like if you have someone that's addicted to drugs and you put them in rehab and you love that person and you see them go through withdrawal, and they're suffering, and you really want to be like, you know what, just give them the drugs. But that love is saying, No, they have to go through this because they have to heal. They have to be better. They have to live up to their full potential. And these drugs is just a cop out. And that's how it is with the pain after sexual trauma. If we keep living in the pain, it becomes a cop out for us. It becomes a crutch, and we don't live our full potential. We don't move forward in life. And you have everybody rooting for you to do the right thing and to get better because they know it's in you to do better and be better at what you are, but you want to dwell in that pain and you have an option. And everybody, like Eileen said, everybody has their time, and it's not just because I'm here. It took a minute for me to get to where I'm at, and it was a long journey. And I recommend counseling because the counselor probably could have helped along in my process. But you have to stay focused on your prize. And guess who the prize is? The prize is you. That survivor in you. You are the prize. And you got to stay focused on that. You got to go in there and you got to win that person that's longing to be free and grant them their emancipation.
Yes. I love what you said. This is the light that I did not see, but they held on to it. And
Yes.
totally. And what a great support that you have from your husband. And I would
Yes.
love to someday to meet him and
Yes.
learn from him what he has been through as well. And we would love to
Yes.
bring the both of you on board
Yes.
part two of our interview,
Oh, that'll be
to share
fun.
that. I think that would be
Yes.
lovely, to share,
Yes.
this the we always say, oh, shall we say, we used to say, like, there's a woman, a supporting woman behind a successful man. In this case, there's a supporting husband
Yes.
behind you. And we would like
Yes.
to
Yes.
see, the secret hero behind the scene as well. This is lovely. And
Yes. That is my hero. He is my knight in shining
absolutely.
armor.
Definitely. So, how would our audience be able to find you? You talked about the book, Breathe Again, and I know you have wrote books.
Yes.
And you also talked
Yes.
about the video, I Am Evidence. Like, if people want to learn more about you, where would they be able to find you
Honestly, as the young folks say, you can find me all over Google. It is so funny.
at?
I didn't realize the presence I had out there because I had started forgetting some of the stuff I had done, and I would Google it. I'm like, oh my God, they keep everything here on Google. But I'm on Facebook. I have my personal page, which I will invite people into that. But if they get too much, I will kick you off my personal page. But I also have an advocate, Lavinia Masters, and I have my Lavinia Masters. I do Instagram, and I do it. Everything is strictly trying to encourage you, empower you on Instagram, and that's it's either Lavinia Masters or Masters Lavinia. I have Twitter because they say Lavinia, you got to do everything. I have Twitter, and now I'm not an avid person all the time on all of them, but I do have a presence. I mean, I don't leave you hanging for like months at a time. Um, and I just recently got into TikTok. And the backstory with TikTok is I work with Rain. I'm on their speakers bureau, and so they were launching their TikTok platform, and so and I told them wherever I go to advocate, I'll advocate. So they were like, we wanted to. They did 2 videos of me to put on their TikTok. And so they said we'll edit it, because it's only like 60 seconds or whatever. So I was like, so what's the purpose of 60 seconds, And so I went on TikTok. I'm still not really familiar with it, but I do have some videos out there that I'll try to go in, and I just strictly try to empower victims with my TikTok videos. And so yeah, and then my website is hopesavesministry.org, www.hopesavesministry.org. And my email, of course, is laviniamasters@gmail.com. That's my general one. But I'm there, and I have a phone number online as well, uh, that people have reached out to me, and I because I have several phones, and it's an actual phone. It's not a computer phone. It's an actual phone, uh, one of my cell phones, and I got it because I had ran into where I found survivors or victims that were seeking help and couldn't get an immediate response. So I just put up one of my phone numbers out there. And with that, so far I haven't had people aggravate me on that phone line. I still screen them, but I have helped a family. I've helped several families. One family, I helped them find another good friend. He has camp for boys for men because he was sexually abused as a child and got on drugs. And so this family, a wealthy family if I may add, their son was on drugs. And they reached out to me because they said that he said it was something sexual had happened. And so I actually went to their home because he lived in the neighborhood behind me. And when I went there, he broke down what happened in front of me and his mom and dad, and they were in total shock because it was someone their family had trusted that kept him when he was a little boy, and they found out that's why he had got on drugs. And so my good friend Lenny Horner, who's a counselor and has his own facility, he had went and rescued him and brought him there to help with rehab. And I've just had so many story. One story, I had to travel out of town to meet a young lady. I had people travel from out of state to meet with me because they feel they didn't have nobody immediate. And I can tell when it's like immediately, I need help. Because I also contemplated suicide before. I tried to take my own life with a whole bottle of Tylenol. I didn't know any better. But when there's an urgency, I got to make sure at least try to do damage control is what I try to do until I can get them the help or the resources they need. But my purpose is to not have any victim left, in silence. And so I pray that every advocate that's at this point where they're helping other victims have that mindset where if someone calls them for help or to rescue, that they if they can't directly help them, they can send them to another resource, or if not the rain hotline, TASA or whatever, but just make sure that someone hears them when they need to be heard. So I'm out there. If you look up Lavinia Masters, you will find me, and I will do all I can to help you. But on my Facebook and on my Instagram, I try to do keep constant encouragement videos or something. On my private Facebook, I do encouragement, but I also do a lot of, I call him Ricky Lee Shenanigans, my husband, because he's funny. He is funny. Um, he's a country boy. I love him to death, but he does funny stuff. He say funny stuff, and I type up the conversations we have, and people just love it. He's not social media. He doesn't like social media, and I'm always trying to get him on. I said, let's do it live. Let's do this, and he's like, we'll do it. And he didn't put me out for about 10 years, but I'm gonna get him one day. I'm pretty persistent, as you guys can tell. But yeah, I'm out there. I'm out there, and I'm out there because I want survivors to hear my voice so they can find their voice. And that's why I'm there. And that's what I do. So everything I do is I will find, if you give me an avenue, I'm going to find a way to advocate while I'm in there. If you give me a microphone, I'm going to empower because I know that's my purpose. And so I want all victims to speak and know their power, know how powerful they are. And just because you felt that everything was ripped from you when it came to your sexual violence encounter, it was not, because they didn't take you and who you were. And you have to realize that. So I'm there and I'm here for you.
Perfect. So we're gonna link the website, the email address, and
Okay.
the contact details from Lavinia so that you can reach out to her if you ever need help. And she's
Yes.
such a joy and so
Thank
helpful
you.
that if she cannot help you, she will bring you to the other resources. And like you mentioned, Lavinia, that you can call the hotline for RAIN. And we also want
Yes.
to mention that we have a support group here on Facebook called Survivors Against Violence Everywhere. This is a safe platform for everyone, whether you're a victim, survivor, but whether you're a supporter, just like a hubby or a loved family, friends, or anyone, or
Yes.
advocate, or just a stranger who just have the loving heart and who want to get on to help. And this is the
Yes.
platform. And if you ever need any help, reach out. We have a lot of people. Sometimes people feel emotional. They just get on Facebook and start
Mm-hmm.
talking, and sometimes
Mm-hmm.
people ask the question, say, I want to kill that abuser, what do I
Yeah.
do? But this is why we have this support group, so that we can be there for you. Once again,
Yes.
this is so important that we are united, because only when we are together can we end this. And this
Yes.
is so beautiful, Lavinia.
Thank
You
you.
have brought like such a useful, important, and joy and God filled, session to our audience. Now, before we close,
Thank you.
like, what would you conclude? Like, what is the takeaway you would like our audience to have?
The takeaway I would like the audience to have is, first, you are not alone in this journey. You are not alone. And that you are loved, whether you want to believe it or not, whether you see it or not, whether you accept it or not, you are loved. And I believe that everybody, whatever pain or trauma you've been through, you have to find the purpose in it, because there was purpose in it. I refuse to believe that God allowed things to happen in our lives for no reason. Sometimes it's for you, and sometimes it's for somebody else. And I feel that my pain was for the world, and that's how I honestly feel, because what He's allowed to happen with the law and me being able to advocate, and then I believe everything else. My healing came through not just God, but seeing the reaction of the world, the reaction of other victims, the reaction of survivors, the reaction of supporters, and it's like a two way street with that. And so I just want every victim or survivor to know they are not alone, and to find that support group. And to those that know victims, those that know someone has been victimized, if you're very close to them, stay in their corner. Pray for them, be there for them. Don't try to push them to do things they don't want to do, but let them know you are there. You are a listening heart. That's so important. They can tell when you're just like my husband. I'm bad about that. Some days I be so inundated with stuff, and he's trying to talk to me, and I be like, He know I'm not listening to him. He said, I want you to listen to me. He wants that compassion. He wants that heart to listen. So I got to tune everybody out. I got to turn the phones off, turn the computer off, and I got to listen to them. And sometimes that's all they need from you. That's all they need, is to know that you're there. And when they decide to make that next step, you fully support them in their healing process. So if you can take away any of that, just take that. You're not alone, and you will be okay. It will be okay in the end. I promise you it will. But you got to see that light where it's right there before you. Focus. Just focus.
Beautiful. Thank you so
Thank you.
much, Lavinia. Yes, there's
Thank you.
light at the end of the tunnel, and focus
Yes.
on the positive side, and
Yes.
everything will be okay. I
Yes,
cannot say
ma'am.
enough thank you for you. I know that you have such a busy schedule, but you jumped on the show
Yes.
so that we can bring this powerful message to our
Yes.
audience.
Thank you.
Like you said, we talked about that. We would love to bring you on board for part two with your husband, and then to do the couple message to those who are going
Yes.
through these as a couple. And thank you so much
Yes.
for tuning in for this show. This is the Miss Texas Show. If you think this message is helpful, please like it, subscribe, and share it. Know that sharing
Yes.
is caring, and you never know what people are going
Yes.
through, and this message can help them. And just like Lavinia said, sometimes they might be putting on a mask and pretending that everything is okay,
Mm-hmm.
while deep inside they're not. And share that with them, and show that
Yes.
love with them, so that they can have the hope.
Yes.
And we love you
Yes.
all. And thank you so much again,
Yes.
Lavinia. Have
Thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed you guys. You guys be blessed.